Hello, everyone. Just give me one moment. I am waiting on our lead tutor, Nick. He is going to enter the chat in just one moment, so just hang tight and we'll begin in just a moment. Alrighty. Hello, everyone. So I think Nick is getting into the meeting momentarily, so I'll just go ahead and I will begin. Let me just make sure I have my screen. Oh, okay, beautiful. So if everyone can, well, let me press play here. Beautiful. Okay. Oh, waiting on one other person. Okay, I'll pause. Two more people are entering. Hey, Nick. All right,
Hello. Sorry. Had
not a
trouble getting
problem.
in, but
We were still waiting on another
I am
attendee
here.
anyway, so it is all good.
All right.
Okay, so I think everyone should be in here now. So if you can, before we get started, if you can drop your student's grade, whether they're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, drop that into the chat, as well as any questions that you might have, anything specific that you were looking to get out of this webinar, go ahead and drop it on in the chat. All right. All right, we have a sophomore. Great. All right, two sophomores. Great. Good time to get started, everyone. Freshman. Awesome. Very good. Ooh. All right, hopefully you guys can see my screen. A little slow, but we're getting there. All right, great. All right, so before we jump in, we'll just do a quick look at our agenda for this evening. We'll start out with introductions, then we'll talk about why SAT math matters more now than ever, as well as who this webinar was designed for. what makes Testive different, what sets us apart from other test prep companies. And then Nick will walk you through three core skills that top scorers master. And then we will wrap up with a question and answer and a special gift for attendees and end of year offers at the end of the webinar. So just hang tight. All right. So a little bit about Testive and who we are. Testive has helped over 7,000 families improve their SAT and ACT scores since 2011. We pride ourselves on less time and higher scores approach, helping students study more efficiently so that they can achieve their score goals without spending countless of hours on test prep. So our tutors, including Nick, who you will meet in just a moment, are true experts on this exam, and they specialize in content, strategies, and test taking skills that make the biggest difference on the day of the exam. We have one other person entering the chat there. Skipped ahead there. My apologies. Okay. So I'll just take a moment to introduce myself. I am Lauren Gaynor, everyone. I am the Client Success Manager here at Testive. I love helping both families as well as the tutors partner together to drive successful outcomes for each student that we work with. I'm originally from New Jersey, central New Jersey, right outside of the Princeton area, and I moved to Dallas, Texas about 2 years ago with my 3-year-old King Charles Spaniel. Okay, and now we have Nick. Nick is our head tutor here at Testive. I did just want to take a moment to introduce him before we dive in. Nick had attended Vanderbilt University and has spent over a decade tutoring students in the SAT as well as the ACT, helping hundreds of students raise their scores and gain acceptances into top universities. He is one of our most trusted and highly regarded tutors and is especially known for breaking down math in a way that actually makes sense to students, particularly students who feel inconsistent in this math section. Okay, why math matters more now than ever on the SAT. So math is half of the score. So the math section does account for 50% of the total SAT score, making it impossible to achieve a top score without a strong math performance. So unlike the old SAT, where math was one of 3 sections, it now carries equal weight with reading and writing combined. More algebra and reasoning. The digital format emphasizes algebraic thinking and problem solving over memorization, so requiring students to apply concepts in novel ways. Small gaps and big score swings. So missing just a few additional math questions as a high score can actually drop your score by 50 to 100 points due to the SAT scoring curve. So even higher scores do need some additional coaching when it comes to the math section. And college readiness. So colleges view math scores as a strong indicator of academic success. So many freshmen do arrive on campus far behind where they need to be or expected to be to study college level math. And who is this webinar for? So who is this webinar designed for? This webinar is perfect for students who are oh, someone in the waiting room, are inconsistent on their SAT math, have strong grades, but maybe a lower math test score, freeze or lose time on harder questions, want to break into the 600 or 700 plus range, or students that need more efficient math strategy. Okay, so Nick, I will let you take it away. Everyone, this is Nick. This is our head tutor here at Testive, and he will be going a little bit more in depth here with our presentation this evening.
Hi there. Um, so, all right, can you hear or can you see me? Um, I think,
Do you
can you
want to
see me,
share your
Lauren?
screen instead, Nick, or do you want me to continue?
Yeah, that might be the way
Cool,
to go.
not a
Well, all right.
problem. I'll do it this way.
So yeah, okay. Well, here, I'll start here. I'll just talk for a little bit. So okay, hi. Yeah, so my name's Nick. as Lauren said, I've been tutoring since 2019, and I have yeah, so almost 7 years now. The SAT is kind of my bread and butter. I've been doing this since the very beginning. I also do ACT, and I've branched out into a whole bunch of other, subject specific tutoring over the years. But yeah, the SAT is like I know this test upwards, downwards, backwards, forwards, every direction. And when it comes to math specifically, Lauren mentioned that yes, a lot of students find themselves in this place where they're getting good grades in, math classes. They're in advanced math classes. They're in calculus. They're in pre-calculus. And they get to the math section on the SAT, which technically does not have anything beyond algebra 2 at trig, and they can't get over a 600 or a 650. And they're like, what is the disconnect here? Right? I've seen all this stuff. I know I've seen all this stuff. Some of it might be older, some of it might be, a bit fuzzier, but still, I must be able to do better than this, right? And the answer is that yes, you can, but it completely comes down to a change of mindset from your math classes to the SAT math. The change of mindset is this, which is, all right. What do you do in your math classes? I would say most people, I mean, every curriculum's different, yes, but I would say most people, their math classes go this way, right? The teacher teaches some topic, right? Introduces the students to some sort of topic, and that they'll present them a process for getting through it. Let's say it's completing the square, right? Everybody, I don't know, the freshman here probably has not yet seen completing the square, but the sophomores might be in the place where you're doing completing the square, like maybe right now, even. And what you are going to do when you complete the square is you go through this process, right? And you remember the process and you practice it over and over and over with a whole bunch of practice problems. And you essentially memorize that process for completing the square. You move the number over and you cut the middle number in half and square it and do the right? And you just kind of learn that and you do it again and again and again. And so long as you remember the correct process for doing that question and all the different versions of the question that come up, the test comes and you just apply the process that you knew to do when you got to those different kinds of questions, right? So a bit of a memorization exercise. And people can get through most, if not all, of high school math by more or less memorizing the processes for each type of question and just doing those on the test, right? Okay, now the SAT comes along and they present problems that look nothing like the questions that the students have seen in their math classes, right? And what students immediately assume they need to do, and it's understandable because this is what they have done for the entirety of all math ever, is they need to memorize the processes for all those different kinds of questions that they're suddenly seeing, right? They're like, oh, there's this one question that's asking me to like set these two things equal to each other, and I've never seen this before, but Nick, tell me, please, what do I do in this situation? And my answer is, it's not about that because you might not see that exact kind of question ever again. You might see something completely new that I don't even know you're going to see again, right? I don't know exactly how they're going to ask every question on every single possible test, right? It's not about memorizing, all the 500,000 different ways they could ask a question. And for each of those 500,000 things, then memorizing a process for doing that, right? That would be, if you tried to do that, A, completely ineffective, and B, really, really exhausting, right? So when students sit down to say, like, okay, now I'm going to study for the SAT, let's just like apply the same strategies I've always used in my math classes to the SAT, they tend to come up short, right? And it's because of what Lauren was saying earlier, which is that the SAT is not so much about memorization. In fact, it's basically zero about memorization anymore. Back maybe 6, 7 years ago, it was a bit more. There was a element of it that was memorization, but they've really, when they changed over to a digital format, they also changed the test somewhat, and they super, super de-emphasize memorization, and they super emphasize reasoning and logic and creative problem solving for getting through problems, right? Now, that is actually really good news, I would say, for just about every student. Now, most of them don't know that it's good news or don't think of it as good news because they're like, I like memorizing. I just kind of like, knowing exactly what process I need to use in each situation and applying that. But it's just not what the SAT is emphasizing anymore. So what we're going to do when I sit down to tutor a student is I'm not going to sit and throw a bunch of formulas at them. Any student who's come to me saying, "Oh, my teacher gave me a formula sheet for the SAT," I'm like, that teacher has not taken the SAT in maybe 25 years. There's no formula sheets you need for this test. It's about using creative problem-solving strategies to tackle problems that will definitely look unfamiliar. There's no way you can predict exactly what they're going to say. So, okay, with all that said, yeah, the SAT, not about memorizing, more about using your logic to kind of get through weird looking problems. So, that does not mean though that we are without strategies. In fact, that means we are with we have some really, really good strategies we can use. One of the major things that the SAT has done is that they have given you access to a graphing calculator throughout the entire math section of the SAT. They've given you access to Desmos. I don't know if anyone here has used Desmos in math class. If you're not using Desmos, your teachers are doing you a great disservice because the people who do well on the SAT are ones who know how to use their resources. And that's a lot of what the SAT is testing, right? And de-emphasizing memorization and emphasizing problem solving and giving you a tool. What they're really testing is they're not testing, do you know how to memorize, completing the square? Because how many people are really going to need completing the square? Not that many. What they are testing though is, all right, you're in an unfamiliar situation. We're going to give you a massive resource to help you get through problems in an unfamiliar situation. How are you going to respond? Right? Because everybody, regardless of what you're going to major in, everybody is going to go to college and they're going to, within the first couple weeks, be presented with a situation that they have never seen before. But they're going to have a whole bunch of resources at their disposal to help them. They're going to have a library. They're going to have their peers, their TAs, their professors, the entire internet, right? And they will be expected to get through that unfamiliar situation, even though nobody's taught them how to do that exact thing before. So, how does the SAT test whether you have the ability to do that? They give you Desmos on the math section, and in a relatively small playground of math and of a graphing calculator, they see can you use your resources to deal with maybe strange looking situations. So, the three core skills that top scorers master. All right, here we go. I'll finally present this. And I'm going to do some problems here and show you what these skills are. The number one skill is using Desmos specifically for graphing, right? So, all right, forgive me in advance. I'm going to have to go back and forth between this and Desmos a bit. On the real test, it is built into the Blue Book app, so it is much smoother, but cannot build it into Canva. So I'm just gonna have to go back and forth between my tabs. But so here's a question that I would venture that would probably be tricky to most students, maybe not impossible by any means, but tricky to do by hand for most anyone who's, especially if you're a sophomore, especially if you're a freshman, right? So it says in the XY plane, the graph of the equation y equals negative x squared plus 9x minus 100 intersects the line y equals c at exactly 1 point. What is the value of c? Okay, to do this by hand is a big pain. I'll tell you that right now. Students have asked me to do it before. I can do it, but I guarantee you don't want to be doing that in the middle of the SAT. It takes a while. And it also requires you to know exactly what to do right away. Otherwise, you're going to run out of time. But you don't need to do this by hand. Why would you, right? Instead, let's use a graphing calculator because really, when we back up from this, all they're asking is there's an equation that happens to look like this: y equals negative x squared plus 9x minus 100. And it's doing something quite simple. It is intersecting a line at 1 point. Anybody can tell me whether something intersects another thing at exactly 1 point or none or more than once, right? That's not difficult. So now this is actually, and let me tell you, this is going to look very simple when I do it in a second. This is not considered an easy question by the SAT. The SAT puts this as a hard, like 3-star difficulty hard question. I know that because this is directly from the College Board and I have pulled it myself. So they consider this difficult. It does not have to be. So here's what I'm going to do. All right. Bear with me as I move between all my screens, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Oh boy, I went to the wrong place. Okay. We are in Desmos. Sorry. Is okay. Gonna go into Desmos via a different way. I'm going in here. All right. Um, so here's Desmos. For those of you who have not seen it before, um, I encourage you to go on. I mean, it's built into the SAT, but you can just go to desmos.com, do as I just did, and you can play around with it. I encourage you to, because now all we need to do is this. So, yeah, y equals uh, negative x squared plus 9x minus 100. That's the equation that it gave us. You saw it kind of jumping around for a second there as it tried to graph it. But where did it end up? If I just zoom out a little bit, I'll find it. Oh, it's all the way down there. Okay, cool. So it says it intersects the line y equals c, and it gives me four options for c, right? It gives them to me as answer choices. So I don't really need to do much with this besides plug in the answer choices and see what it gives me, right? The first number is negative 481 over 4. All right, as weird of a number as that is, and as weird of a graph as this might be, all they're really asking is, does this intersect it once or not? No, it doesn't intersect it once, it intersects it twice. There and there, right? Okay, you don't need to know anything about math to do that, right? So, all right, the next one is negative 100 itself. Does that intersect it once? No, definitely not. It intersects it twice. Okay, answer choice C is negative 319 over 4. Does that intersect it once? Oh, it does. And with that, we're done, right? How did that work? It doesn't really matter, right? Because we just got through the problem. I can tell you more about why it works later. It involves the quadratic formula and the discriminant of the quadratic formula, and that's no fun, right? But all you need to know is that, well, that got me through the problem, right? And yeah, by the way, an answer choice D, just so we know that it's absolutely wrong, is negative 9 over 2, which is way over here, not intersecting it even close to once. So that question, a hard question, done, moving on, right? So back to my presentation. I'll show you this one more time. Uh, all right, Desmos for graphing. We are here. All right, another question. Um, under Desmos for graphing a circle. Graphing a circle, not something everyone even does in their math curriculum. A circle in the xy plane has a diameter with endpoints 2, 4, and 2, 14. An equation of this circle is x minus 2 squared plus y minus 9 squared equals r squared, where r is a positive constant. What is the value of r? Yes, again, most of my students, they come to me and they're like, Nick, remind me, how do I do it? Or tell me, I've never learned, how do I graph a circle? What does it mean? Sure, I can tell you. We can go off and we can talk about it, right? But for the purposes, like if you got this on the real test and I weren't there, right? Well, I'm not there to answer that question for you. So how could you get through this anyways, right? Well, again, they told you that there's a circle that is graphed using this thing, x minus 2 squared plus y minus 9 squared equals r squared. And they told you something that, again, anybody could tell me whether or not this is true. Does that circle, when you graph it, goes through the points 2, 4, and 2, 14? That's all that needs to happen here. Okay, fine. So moving back over to Desmos. Jumping through all the hoops. Okay, fine. So there's a tool in Desmos, a graphing tool called a slider that I will tell students about. Where all right. So first things first. Actually, I should just graph 2, 4. Okay, it's right there, and 2, 14, and it's right there. Okay, cool. So now. This is the equation it gave us. Yeah. So there's a tool called a slider, which is kind of cool. And it's totally accessible during in the middle of the SAT as well. Where if I put this in exactly as I see it, including with the R, like this was how it showed up in the problem, right? X minus 2 squared plus 9, y minus 9 squared equals r squared. If I put that in with the R, it actually offers me something called a slider, which is it always defaults to one, but it's this tool that allows me to plug in different numbers for R really, really rapidly to see what happens to the graph when that number changes, right? So clearly, does this circle go through 2, 4, and 2, 14? No, right? But let's move R up a little bit because it says it has to be positive, so I don't want it to go into the negatives. Well, clearly I'm getting closer and closer and closer, and eventually, there we go. When R is 5, the circle does what I want it to do. Yes, I could tell you more about like why that works and what the equation of a circle is, but for this question, you put in 5, you move on. Move on with your life, as I say. You have more questions around the corner. Don't worry about the why for right now. We'll get there. But for the purposes of increasing your score good like 50 to 100 points quickly, do this, right? Okay, so that's the first thing. Desmos for graphing. Now, the second thing is Desmos for algebra, which might sound a little bit strange. Um, Back here. All right. So Desmos for algebra. Um, Desmos obviously is a graphing calculator and therefore can be most used for graphing questions, but it can also be used for questions that seem to have nothing to do with graphing, like this one. If the absolute value of 4x minus 4 equals 112, what is the positive value of x minus 1? I chose this one because absolute value problems are something that pretty much every student has seen and most every student has forgotten. Um, Understandably, because you learn them in like early algebra, like eighth or ninth grade. You learn them for a week and then you never touch them again. And then suddenly they show up on the SAT out of nowhere. And you're like, oh, how do I solve absolute value? Sure, I could tell you. But again, Desmos Desmos once again comes to the rescue because one of the things Desmos can do is it can solve equations for you. And that's what we're doing here. They're asking you to solve this equation. Solving an equation simply, of course, means finding the value of x that makes an equation true. So Desmos actually solves equations for you. It doesn't know it's solving an equations for you. That's kind of an interesting thing about it. It thinks it's doing something else. But just to explain this real fast, if I graph like x equals 3, right? That is a graph, a vertical line at x equals 3 that goes through all the y values that have an x coordinate of 3, right? But Desmos is smart when it comes to graphing. You don't actually have to solve for the variable. If I graph 2x equals 6, it knows that that also, when you divide both sides by 2, is x equals 3, right? So it again graphs for me that vertical line at x equals 3. All right, this doesn't seem maybe all that mind-blowing, but actually it's pretty cool because what it's just done for us is it has solved this equation by graphing a vertical line at any solution. So uh, that works even when the equation that I'm dealing with is pretty annoying, like say this one. Like that's a really this is a super annoying question to solve. And I've seen this on the SAT before. I don't want to do this. I really don't want to do this. Because I have to end up doing like quadratics and everything. I don't want to do that in the middle of the SAT, but I don't have to because look at this. It graphed my solution for me. It's 9 point, it's not going to be a pretty number, I'll tell you that. 9.78 something. So, all right, that's going to be enough to get you the answer. I'll tell you that right now. And there you go. Desmos solved it for you. So getting to the question that I pulled up a second ago, the absolute value of 4x minus 4 equals 112. All right, well, let's just zoom out here. It asks what was the positive solution or the positive value of x minus 1. Notice there's two vertical lines, which means there's two answers. And if you remember solving absolute value, which most people don't, but if you do, you might remember most absolute value equations give you two answers. One of my answers is negative 27. Look at that. The other one is x equals 29. And so x equals negative 27, x equals 29. The positive value of x minus 1 is going to be 29 minus 1, so 28. You didn't have to know anything to get that problem except how to use Desmos to solve an equation for you. Okay, there you go. I know I'm kind of flying through this here. I'll take questions. We'll do some questions afterwards if anyone has them. But it just goes to show that like Desmos can be helpful on things that aren't even necessarily graphing. All right, just in the interest of time, because I know I've like ranted on here for a little bit. This is another one where Desmos can be helpful. You technically don't have a graphing problem here, but this can be done with Desmos. The one last thing I want to talk about, though, and I won't have to go back and forth from Desmos for this, is this is a word problem. So we have Desmos for graphing, we have Desmos for non-graphing algebra, and then we have a word problem, right? Word problems are everyone's least favorite. No one likes word problems, right? These three types of questions under the banners of algebra and advanced math comprise 70% of the SAT math. The other 30% is geometry, a tiny bit of trig, and then kind of a miscellaneous category of like statistics, probability, percents, and unit conversion. Okay. That 30% of things I do cover with students, obviously, but we get into that a little bit later because it's only 30% of the test. Obviously, you need it, but it's not like gonna make or break you. It's not gonna be the absolute difference between, like if you miss a percent question, right? Like it's fine. But if you are missing every word problem or every algebra problem or every graphing problem because that's just a weak spot for you, that's what's really going to keep your score from getting higher. So if you can get through these three types of questions and really master these skills, that's like that's what's going to make the difference. So, all right, word problems. This is my like favorite kind of trick, actually. It does not involve Desmos, but a lot of word problems, not absolutely all of them, but a lot of them take the form of what I call a modeling question, where they give you a real world scenario, and then they ask you, all right, could you please like find the equation that models this situation? Yeah, everyone hates this because what they think they have to do is think they have to like build this equation from scratch, build this up from the sand and arrive at one of these four things. You really don't. So to read this one, it says a model estimates that at the end of each year from 2015 to 2020, the number of squirrels in a population was 150% more than the number of squirrels in the population at the end of the previous year. Okay, already this is a little bit much, right? But here's the trick is that what you want to do is you want to find a pair of numbers, a data point that absolutely must work in the correct equation. And they're about to tell us that here. It says the model estimates that at the end of 2016, there were 180 squirrels in the population. Okay, so immediately we get a year and we get a number of squirrels, which is important because what the question says is this, which of the following equations represents this model, where n is the estimated number of squirrels in the population t years after the end of 2015, and t is less than or equal to 5, meaning we only care about it from 2015 to 2020. But again, the most important piece of information here was this, that at the end of 2016, there were 180 squirrels in the population. That tells us that, all right, T years after the end of 2015, what is T? T is 1. 2016 is 1 year after 2015, right? And at that moment, there were N equals, because N is the number of squirrels, 180 squirrels. So whichever of these is correct, better be able to hold these two numbers in it. Otherwise, it's not right, right? So let's try it. Answer choice A. Is it true that when t is 1, n is 180? 75 times 1.5 to the first. 75 times 1.5 to the first, tempting, it's not quite right. That is 108. So per this model, in the end of 2016, you'd have 108 squirrels, not 180. It's wrong. B, n equals 72, sorry, not 75, 72, 72 times 2.5 to the t to the first. 72 times 2.5, that is 180. All right, that sounds pretty good. Let me just make sure every other one is absolutely wrong. N equals 180 times 1.5 to the first. Well, is that true? Sorry, my handwriting got crazy there. 180 times 1.5 to the first. Is this correct? Well, 180 times 1.5 to the first, I don't really care what it is. It's not 180, right? By this model, it's going to be way over. Same thing with D. When n equals 180 times 2.5 to the first, that's also over 180. So those have to be wrong, have to be wrong. The answer is B. How did we get there? That has to do with exponential functions, which again is something I can describe a little bit later. But to try and get that score up rather quickly, use this. Plug in a pair of numbers that must work in the situation to see which of those is the correct, which model is the correct one. Okay, I do have another example for this too, but again, be conscientious of time. I'm just going to pause and yeah, this is more or less the same thing. It's the same thing, but a little bit backwards. But still, you're going to plug in some numbers that work and use it to get the answer for you. All right. So with that, I'll pause and I guess open it up to questions. I know this was just a quick little like snippet. This was not really a tutoring session exactly. It was just kind of a preview. We need to do a lot more practice and see a lot more examples to really master this. But you can see how with a few skills, the SAT can go from like, oh, I have to learn a million different processes to actually, I need to learn three. Well, it's more than that, but it's a relatively small number of processes that you have to learn that you can then apply to whatever weirdo situation they want to give you, right? So that mindset shift is makes all the difference. Okay, any questions? If not, that is okay. Um, I could do one more question if people have time, um, or we could just kind of bring things to a close. All right. Well, what do you think, Lauren? What?
Yeah, I could take it from here if just being
Yeah.
mindful of time as well, just to kind of go over some of those giveaways for the end of the webinar. So if that works for you, then I can kind of take it from here.
Yeah. Sounds
Awesome.
good.
Thank
All
you, Nick.
right.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing and going through all of that. I wish that you were around when I was
Yes.
taking the SAT.
Yeah, and don't worry, I normally know where to find Desmos on my computer. It's just this time I had X'd out of it without meaning to.
Not a problem.
That's the answer there.
All right. Sounds great. Okay, so then I am going to just wrap up the end of this webinar and let me present this. Oh, oh, well, not present. Here we go. Here we go. Clearly, my computer is not wanting to participate.
This
Trying
is
to
probably fine, Lauren.
zoom
You
in.
probably
Okay, yeah, let me
okay.
just
We
explain it.
can
You guys
we
will
can
get the
see the
gist.
page. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so thank you guys all for coming to the webinar. It's been a pleasure. We do want to offer you guys some year-end tutoring bonus hours, where if you do sign up for a package, you buy 5 hours, we will offer you two free. Or if you want to buy an even bigger package, 10 hours, get 4 free sessions. So definitely a big deal. And this does apply to any tutor, including Nick. So huge deal here that we are offering for end of the year. Lock-in rates are before the first of the year, of course, being that it is end of year. So it's ideal for sophomores, juniors, people that are looking to get a package and get ahead. Hours don't expire. They definitely do carry over. And then we do have one other special offer as well, and that is a free college advising session with our director of college admissions, Kate Manier. So the value is $250, and we are giving that to you guys free today. I'm going to drop a link where you can go ahead and schedule that session right here in the chat. So she'll be able to go over personalized admissions guidance, essay strategy, timelines with planning during the college process. So I will put that in the chat right here, and that goes directly to her calendar. So you would be able to go ahead and schedule that. So I will post that right here in the chat. Just want to make sure no one has any other last minute questions for either myself or Nick. Um, as we wrap up, I'm going to end the webinar in just a moment. Just wanted to go and put the calendar in here for Kate if anyone wants to go ahead and take advantage of that offer. It's a really, really great way to get ahead, especially for some of these sophomores in the chat here. Really, really great way to get educated and get ahead during the college admissions process. Okay. Wonderful. So then if no questions, feel free to either give us a call, when the time is right for you, or go ahead and schedule that session with Kate. And I just want to thank you guys all for coming. Thank you for your time. Okay.
Yeah,
Bye,
thank you
everyone.
all.
Have a great night.
Bye.